Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we think about the state of housing, I do think it's important to think about housing prices compared to other economic fundamentals. Mr. Pinto, you addressed this. I just want to make sure we've got this distilled down to its essence here. First, let me say, uh, is it true that in recent years housing prices have increased faster than income in many markets? Mr. Pinto, are you there?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
yes, that's true, Senator.
Okay, so that's affirmative. All right, and is it also true that home prices just can't rise faster than personal income indefinitely? That's not sustainable. Is that right?
That is also correct. It's not sustainable.
Right. So since that's what's been going on for some time, does it follow that at some point in the foreseeable future, housing prices are going to have to converge back toward income and other fundamentals? There's going to have to be a return to a convergence there, right?
That is my opinion, yes.
Okay, Dr. DeMarco, so Mr. Pinto has confirmed that, to put it briefly, the housing market, at least in some places, is overheated. That's my term, but I think that's true. My question for you: does this current state of the housing market reinforce the case for GSE reform, or does it weaken the case? What's your sense?
I think the case is there today. It was there yesterday, and I believe it really needs to be dealt with now. There are a number of things affecting market conditions now that would be improved with housing finance reform.
So yesterday I released principles for housing finance reform, and you alluded to them. I do want to reiterate that I look forward to working with the chairman, my colleagues on this committee, and the administration to try to move the ball forward on that. Let me ask you this, Dr. DeMarco, because I know you've done a lot of work in this space. The principles that I released yesterday include reforms that are meant to preserve access to the 30-year mortgage, increase the role of private capital, protect taxpayers against future bailouts. Are all of these possible in combination, or are they mutually exclusive?
Now, I believe they're quite possible, Senator, and I believe there have been a number of reform proposals that have aligned with the sort of principles that you put out, that Chairman Brown put out, and I believe that housing finance reform can do those things.
And despite the fact that the economy has not fully recovered from last year's shutdowns, you believe that now is as good a time as any to begin this process? Is that a fair
It
statement?
is, Senator. It's going to take a number of years to do this, and there's no reason to be delaying. We've been delaying for 12 years.
And my last question, then I think I'm going to run out of time, but if we were to go down this road and in a bipartisan fashion, we could achieve something very close to the principles that, as you point out, have been discussed for some period of time. Could you discuss some of the advantages that people would find, some of the advantages for taxpayers, for homeowners, for future homeowners? What is your sense of some of the advantages of these reforms?
I think reform can bring greater competition to the housing market, and that competition would spur greater innovation. All of the witnesses today have talked about some of the challenges for the racial ownership gap and so forth. And I believe that more innovation would really help. It would also lead to a reduction in systemic risk. Today, we've got a lot of systemic risk by concentrating risk, on the backs of the taxpayer through these government-backed entities. And I believe housing finance reform can disseminate that risk through the system, which would lower risk to the whole financial system.
Thank you, Dr. DeMarco. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.